questions on that? That brings us back to our do-all.
Let me go back to 6, actually.
Okay.
You said the residents were satisfied with the...
Yeah, I guess what happened was, when the moose was there, they built some horseshoe thingies.
Yes.
And they kept piling up the dirt, so when it would rain, there would be a lot of runoff into their backyards. And they were concerned that that would become noise. And actually, the architect reassured them, as well as the planning commission, that having this happen would be the best thing of all, because the engineering companies would make sure that drainage is correct.
Yeah, you'd have to have on-site water is actually stuff anyways.
Right. So, Eric, do you want to address number 7?
Actually, I'll pass or gently
Okay.
roll it over to the city attorney, but we both ended up speaking with the owner and had conversations, but I'll lend it to you.
Eric, thank you so much. Folks, as Eric mentioned, I had a chance, both of us had a chance to talk with Mr. Mondi Rockjot today, as a matter of fact, after I reviewed and determined that this is a good thing, and that one, our ordinance would apply under the specific situation, in that we were, hiring someone and they were going to be providing the city with labor. So the question became, which was interesting in and of itself, was this person willing to pay us what under our ordinance is known as the federal poverty level? So I had a great time today researching a very interesting subject and was able to come up with the fact that the official poverty level for 2014 for a family of 4, which is what we must refer to under our ordinance, is $23,850. Of course, the other important note here is that under the ordinance, if the employer provides an insurance or health care coverage plan to its employees, they only need to show that they are paying the poverty level of the $23,850. If not, they would have to pay 125% of the poverty level, which would be, I believe it was somewhere in the ballpark of $28,000 or $29,000. I spoke with Mr. Roger. He said that he, in fact, does pay his employees that. He will be sending something over to me tomorrow in writing that actually, substantiates that. And again, the council can move forward on the vote when that the ordinance is being complied with. You gotta understand.
And he did state in the conversation that if copies of payroll needed to be provided to affirm that he'd be happy to do that as well.
Can you give that to Susie and she can make us all a copy before the meeting?
Well, I mean, the contract hasn't been executed, so upon council approval, he would submit the letter and then pay that, living wage, and if there had to be a quarterly audit, monthly audit, whatever the city chose to confirm or affirm that he's doing what he should be doing, he would be at that time willing to submit paper.
Now, that wouldn't change the bid, though.
In other words, he's willing to respond to the
And folks, what you should know too, under the very same ordinance, if the employer does not provide this information and/or were not to comply with the ordinance, that's enough. That's a material breach to cancel the contract. So you should know that.
So, me bringing it up wasn't a bad thing.
On this particular circumstance, no,
We
Mr. Johnson, it wasn't.
make sure that we comply with the ordinance.
Sure.
Sure.
And there are exceptions under the ordinance, but I won't bore you all over. This was not one of them, so.
Just seems like we're selectively enforcing this. Is this the only vendor that we've audited and researched? Are we positive every vendor that the city does business with?
It's only over a certain amount.
50 grand.
Yes, this is the only vendor that I can absolutely tell you that we've ever heard of. I've never even heard of this ordinance until 2 weeks ago. So I'm sure that it hasn't been enforced anywhere else.
But that was put in place in what year? 2000? 9?
That's in the charter.
it's in the chart, well, it's in the ordinance, but I think you're right, Mr. Johnson, I'm not exactly sure what it is. It's been there, this is the first time I've dealt with it in the 3 years that I've been.
Or my own issue.
I was just simply going to say, in reviewing this ordinance too, it's something that we should be putting in our RFPs and request this. In fact, the gentleman today, I mean, he was very congenial and willing to assist us with whatever we needed, any information we needed. But the one question he did have for me, he goes, Mr. Martin, he goes, wouldn't this be something that I would want to know up front? And I said, it was. And I apologize, and I was honest with him. I just told him this is the first time I'd encountered it. But in fact, I didn't mention this on the phone, but the ordinance does indicate that this should be in the contracts. So moving forward, we should do that to be fair to everyone.
How are you defining workforce when we're going to go through all these extra steps of enforcing something that we've never enforced before? What's the definition of workforce? You gave me the number, I did some homework too. 23.8, 29,800 if there's no insurance. Is that an average per employee? Is that a minimum that every employee? How are we defining that and how are we enforcing that?
As far as
And why are we going to start 20 years into it to start enforcing this when it's vaguely written and hard to comprehend? I went through every ordinance. I can find lots of ordinances that we don't enforce. Why are we picking this one? I don't understand the priority. I don't understand how it helps the taxpayer. I don't understand how it helps the resident. Why are we doing this?
Well, I guess the priority would be, Councilman, in that it is one of our ordinances. I think somebody mentioned it last week. If it's an ordinance that we don't want to, or we have no intention of,
I understand.
prioritizing or using.
But in
then
our
we should get rid of it.
financial condition, there's a lot of things that we'd like to do that we can, and we prioritize those that we can and those that we can't. And it seems like we should shove things to the top of the list that are important, that help the city, that help taxpayers, that help residents. I don't see how this does that.
I think it goes back to the charter was written in 1966. There's a lot of things that happened in 1966 that are different today in 2014.
Agreed.
I mean, the charter is so outdated and antiquated. Heck, it calls the clerk a he. Does that mean we can't have a she? I mean, you get into all kinds of, stuff that what part, that do you choose to enforce and.
And why
clearly needs to
prioritize
be-
this on top? I agree.
Yeah, it
I
clearly
went
needs to be
through.
revisited.
We probably don't talk to people about how many domestic animals they have in their residence, but there's an ordinance about that. There's an ordinance about garage sales. There's lots of things that we should enforce because it's part of our ordinance and our charter, but we choose not to because we don't have the manpower and we don't have the resources. So we need to prioritize what's important for the city. And this isn't one of them.
Well,
I don't care if you have more than 4 gerbils in your house.
and the reason why I brought it up is because I read the ordinance, and it came before us in a contract, and now I know about it. So I took an oath of office to enforce the charter, the city of Taylor, and I assume that would be the ordinances. So I don't go around asking how many gerbils somebody has,
Because it's not a priority.
Right, but I seen it, I thought I'd bring it up. I think it needs to be brought up. And if we don't want to use it, then, like I said, that all comes with the charter commission on once that gets going.
I just don't want this council to get distracted and to lose focus on the things that are important, that's all. I'm like you, I don't want to turn a blind eye to something, but I don't think we're the only community, we're not the only county, we're not the only state that, there's lots of things that we'd like to do, but we have to focus on the ones that are important. So I'm not suggesting anybody intentionally violate an ordinance. I'm saying out of all the things that are out there, let's focus on what's important. And I'm just suggesting this isn't one of them, that's all.
And to complicate it more, what if you had going down the menu of what ifs, what if you had a 1-year contract that had a 2nd-year extension and the 1-year approval doesn't put it over $50,000, but if you enter into the 2nd year, now all of a sudden, a year later, it becomes a $50,000 contract and you're dealing with the parameters.
That's why everything is so vague, it's not black and white in a lot of these ordinances in the charter. So that's, you know,
Why don't we just create a list, it's like an ordinance like this, we can just amend, correct? Without changing the charter. So I mean, kind of make a list of, okay,
That's
let's,
really all we
let's
need
look
to
at
do.
getting rid of this one. If we come up to these along our terms, you know, let's, hey, we don't need this really, and let's all decide as a council and as a community, we don't need this, and we amend it. We don't need to change the charter for that.
You know, I'm certainly in favor of any continuous improvement. So
Sure.
if there's a way to make it better and make it clearer, you know, absolutely. You know, but we, you know, at some point, we are going to have to sit down and dig into this, you know, changing the charter or amending the charter. I mean, there's just so many reasons why that thing needs to be updated, and everybody's avoided it because it is not going to be an easy task. It's going to require legal support, which is going to cost money. You know, so there's a lot of dynamics to it, but yes, there's a lot of changes that need to happen. This obviously being one of them that needs to be visited, along with the gerbil.